Claire Simmons had spent 3 years believing she knew exactly who Preston Vance was. On the morning of her wedding, she stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling mirror inside the luxurious bridal suite, carefully smoothing the folds of her custom-made wedding gown. The dress was breathtaking, crafted from imported French lace and hand-stitched pearls that shimmered under the soft golden lights. It was everything she had ever dreamed of and more. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, the day she would finally become Mrs. Preston Vance. As her makeup artist made final adjustments, Claire allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. 3 years earlier, she had met Preston during what seemed like a chance encounter. He was charming, ambitious, and confident in a way that made people naturally gravitate toward him. Against her better judgment, she had fallen deeply in love. Throughout those years, she stood by his side through countless challenges. When his company struggled, she encouraged him. When investors doubted him, she believed in him. When his demanding family made it clear that she was not welcome, she swallowed her pride and remained silent for the sake of their future together. The biggest obstacle had always been Preston's mother, Beatrice Vance. From the very beginning, Beatrice made no effort to hide her contempt. In her eyes, Claire was nothing more than an ordinary woman from an unremarkable background. She lacked the wealth connections and social status that the Vance family valued above all else. Every family gathering became a test of endurance. Beatrice criticized her clothes, her manners, her career, and even the way she spoke. No matter how hard Claire tried, she was never good enough. What hurt even more was Chloe Sutton. Chloe had entered Claire's life as a friend. Sweet, supportive, and seemingly trustworthy, she often comforted Claire after difficult encounters with Beatrice. She listened patiently whenever Claire expressed doubts about her relationship with Preston. She attended wedding planning meetings, helped choose decorations, and even accompanied Claire during dress fittings. Claire had trusted her completely. Looking back, the signs had always been there. The lingering glances between Chloe and Preston, the secretive phone calls, the sudden silences whenever she entered a room. But love had a way of blinding people to uncomfortable truths. Hours later, the grand ballroom of the Astoria Hotel glittered beneath crystal chandeliers. Hundreds of guests filled the seats, including influential business leaders, politicians, and socialites from across New York. Cameras flashed as the wedding orchestra began to play. Standing at the end of the aisle, Claire felt her heart race with excitement. This was it. The beginning of forever. She slowly walked toward Preston, who waited beneath an arch covered in white roses. Yet as she approached him, something felt wrong. His expression was unusually cold. There was no excitement in his eyes, no warmth, no trace of the man she thought she knew. When the officiant asked if they were ready to begin, Preston suddenly raised a hand. The music stopped. The room fell silent. Confused murmurs spread through the crowd. Claire stared at him, her smile faltering. "Preston," she whispered. Without answering her, Preston turned toward the entrance of the ballroom and extended his hand. Every eye followed his gesture. A woman in a short white dress stepped into the spotlight. Chloe Sutton. For a moment, Claire thought she was hallucinating. But Chloe continued walking forward. One step, then another, until she reached Preston's side. Gasps erupted throughout the ballroom. Several guests exchanged shocked glances. Others pulled out their phones, sensing drama far more entertaining than a wedding ceremony. Claire's blood turned to ice. "What is this?" she asked quietly. Preston finally looked at her. His expression remained emotionless. "The bride standing here today was always supposed to be Chloe," he said. The words struck harder than any physical blow. Around them, the crowd exploded into whispers. Beatrice Vance sat in the front row with a satisfied smile on her face, as though witnessing the successful conclusion of a carefully planned performance. "You should step down now," Claire Preston continued calmly. "Let's not make this more difficult than it has to be." The humiliation was complete. Hundreds of eyes stared at her. Some were shocked. Some were sympathetic. Others openly enjoyed the spectacle. Her fiancé had publicly replaced her with another woman on their wedding day. And the worst part was that everyone seemed to know except her. Yet instead of crying, screaming, or begging for an explanation, Claire did something that no one expected. She smiled. A small, almost imperceptible smile. Then she slowly removed her diamond-studded veil and placed it on a nearby chair. The ballroom became eerily quiet. Without saying a single word, she turned around and began walking back down the aisle. Her posture remained perfectly straight. Her head remained high. Behind her, whispers followed like shadows. But Claire never looked back. Not once. Because the moment she stepped through those ballroom doors, the woman known as Claire Simmons would cease to exist forever. The moment the heavy ballroom doors closed behind her, the noise of the wedding reception vanished as though someone had severed the world in half. For several seconds, Claire Simmons stood alone in the silent hotel corridor. The scent of expensive flowers and perfume still lingered in the air, but the humiliation she had just endured had already begun to fade into something far colder. Determination. Without hesitation, she turned away from the main elevators and pushed open the door leading to the emergency stairwell. The metallic click echoed through the empty space as the door closed behind her. Only then did she allow herself to breathe. Reaching beneath the layers of her wedding gown, she pulled out a thin, black burner phone hidden against her waist. The device looked strangely out of place in the hands of a woman dressed like a bride. The screen lit up immediately. One unread message waited for her. "Father, do you need us to intervene?" For the first time that day, a faint smile touched her lips. Her fingers moved calmly across the screen. "No. Proceed with the original plan. Pick me up in 3 minutes. Freight elevator. Underground garage. Erase all security footage." The reply came almost instantly. "Understood." "Welcome home, Victoria." Victoria. A name she had not heard spoken aloud in years. Slowly, she removed her diamond veil and let it fall onto the concrete floor. Then she reached behind her back and ripped open the zipper of her wedding gown. The expensive fabric split apart with a satisfying sound. Beneath the gown, she was already wearing black athletic clothing and comfortable sneakers. She stepped out of the ruined dress and tossed it into a nearby industrial trash container. Claire Simmons died in that stairwell. 3 minutes later, a private elevator carried her directly to the underground garage. Waiting there was a heavily armored black Cadillac surrounded by security personnel. The moment she approached, 2 men in dark suits bowed respectfully. "Miss Sterling." The car door opened. No one called her Claire. No one ever would again. Inside the vehicle sat her executive assistant, who immediately handed her a secure smartphone and a tablet containing a series of reports. "All traces of the Claire Simmons identity are being removed as we speak," he informed her. Victoria glanced through the documents. Apartment leases canceled. Employment records deleted. Bank accounts closed. Digital footprints erased. Within hours, every piece of evidence connecting her to the identity of Claire Simmons would disappear. To the outside world, it would be as if she had never existed. The vehicle left Manhattan and traveled north toward Connecticut. As the city lights faded behind them, Victoria stared out the window in silence. For 3 years, she had willingly hidden her true identity. 3 years pretending to be ordinary. 3 years observing the people around her without the influence of money, power, or status. And now the experiment was over. Near midnight, the gates of the Sterling estate opened. The property stretched across hundreds of acres overlooking the coastline. Historic stone buildings, private gardens, and state-of-the-art security systems blended seamlessly into one of the most valuable private estates in America. Generations of wealth had built this place. Generations of power had protected it. The vehicle stopped in front of the main mansion. Waiting at the entrance stood a tall, silver-haired man whose presence alone commanded authority. Richard Sterling, chairman of Sterling Holdings, one of the most influential businessmen in the world, and Victoria's father. As she stepped from the vehicle, he studied her carefully. His sharp eyes lingered on the simple clothes replacing the wedding gown. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Victoria shook her head. "No." Richard nodded. "Good." There was no pity in his expression, only approval. "You lost nothing of value today," he said calmly. "You simply discovered the true character of the people around you." The mansion doors opened again. A graceful woman hurried forward. Elizabeth Sterling embraced her daughter immediately. Unlike her husband, tears filled her eyes. "My poor girl." Victoria smiled softly. "I'm fine, Mother." The older woman gently touched her face. "No, you're stronger than fine." Together they entered the mansion. For the first time in years, Victoria found herself surrounded by the world she had temporarily abandoned. The Sterling family controlled banks, investment firms, technology companies, shipping networks, and luxury real estate across multiple continents. Politicians sought their support. Executives feared their influence. Entire industries moved according to decisions made inside these walls. And one day, Victoria would inherit a significant portion of that empire. Later that evening, she joined her parents in a private conference room overlooking the ocean. Several senior executives waited around the table. Financial reports illuminated massive digital screens. At the center of nearly every document was a familiar name: Vance Enterprises. Richard Sterling folded his hands. "What would you like to do?" Victoria looked at the company profile displayed before her. Preston Vance. The man who had publicly humiliated her only hours earlier. The man who believed he had discarded an ordinary woman. The man who had absolutely no idea who he had offended. For a moment the room remained silent. Then Victoria stood. The ocean waves crashed against the cliffs outside the windows. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. No longer Claire Simmons. No longer pretending. No longer hiding. "I gave Preston Vance 3 years of trust," she said quietly. Her voice was calm. Dangerously calm. He repaid that trust with humiliation. Several executives exchanged nervous glances. They knew that tone. It was the same tone Richard Sterling used before destroying competitors. Victoria slowly turned toward the screen, displaying the Vance corporate logo. Effective immediately, she continued, "I want a complete investigation into every aspect of Vance Enterprises." Her father smiled. Not warmly. Predatorily. "Done." Victoria's eyes hardened. "And when the investigation is finished," she paused. The room seemed to hold its breath. "We begin." At that moment, the war between the Sterling Empire and the Vance family officially began. And Preston Vance still had no idea that the woman he discarded at the altar was about to become the greatest mistake of his life.